Probation staff have been told not to use the phrase chemical castration in conversations with pedophiles and sex offenders in case it upsets them. Shabana Mahmood, the Justice Secretary, announced this week that 20 prisons would trial voluntary chemical castration. Speaking in Parliament on Thursday, she described the process as providing medication to manage problematic sexual arousal. It has now been reported that probation officers have been told to use the same phrasing when speaking to sex offenders. A source told The Sun, "We have been told we can't use the word chemical castration when talking to sex offenders and instead have to say medication to manage problematic sexual arousal. We were told it's in case the word castration upsets them, it beggars belief." A Ministry of Justice Moj spokesperson said, "This phrase is simply the medical term for this treatment." Mahmood has signaled the pilot scheme is the first step towards potentially changing the law to force offenders to take the medication, telling MPs, "I am exploring whether mandating the approach is possible." Alex Davies-Jones, the Justice Minister, suggested prisoners could be forced to do so in the same way as when patients are sectioned under the Mental Health Act to enable doctors to administer the drugs. "Exploring every avenue. We are exploring every avenue possible," she said. Another option would be to make chemical castration a condition of freed sex offenders' licenses and send them back to jail if they refuse. Chemical castration is already being piloted in prisons in southwest England, where 34 prisoners a month receive sexual suppression drugs. The scheme is voluntary, as is such treatment in Germany, France, Sweden, and Denmark. It is mandatory in Poland, Kazakhstan, and some U.S. states. The Moj pointed to research showing that the drugs can cut reoffending rates by up to 60%. Problematic sexual arousal can be reduced by chemical suppressants and prescribed medication, but it would not be relevant for some sex offenders such as rapists who are driven by power and control, rather than sexual preoccupation. However, the Moj is facing a backlash from doctors as it presses ahead. Professor Don Grubin, who advised the government on the initial trial, said he was opposed to mandatory prescribing as it goes against long-standing medical principles of consent. If you are talking about mandatory prescribing, there would be a lot of resistance from doctors because you would be asking them to prescribe not to patients but to reduce risk for society. So they become agents of social control, which is something we have always resisted, Professor Grubin said.